So we saw what happened when we have the square root of 25 and the square root of x to the sixth, where we have these perfect squares underneath the radical. And now let's see what happens when we have things under the radical that are not perfect squares. So let me remind you, the square root of 25 is 5, and the square root of x to the sixth is x to the third. Okay? If you do 5 squared, you'll get 25, and if you do x to the third squared, you'll get x to the sixth. Now, what about the square root of 50? I don't know the square root of 50. It's not a perfect square. I know the square root of 36. I know the square root of 49. I know the square root of 64. I don't know the square root of 50. But one of those perfect squares goes into 50. So at this point, you want to have a list of your perfect squares in your notebook. So on the right-hand side, I've listed some numbers, 2 to 11, and now I'm going to make a column with all of their squares. So when we're looking at the square root of 50, do you see any numbers over here, any of these perfect squares that would divide into 50? And there it is, 25. 25 goes into 50 2 times. So what we can do is we can split up 50, and we can call it 25 times 2. Now, I do know the square root of 25. I don't know the square root of 2. Let me show you what else we can do. If they're multiplied, you can split these up into 2 radicals. Square root of 25 times the square root of 2. Okay, you can't do it if it's a plus or a minus, but if it's multiplied, that's okay. Now, what is the square root of 25? Well, the square root of 25 is just 5. And then what about this 2 under the radical? I can't do anything with that. Okay, can't take it out. So this is your answer. 5 square root of 2. The 5 is out here free, but the 2 is still trapped under the radical. So let's look at the square root of x to the seventh. Now, I know that every 2 under the radical gives me 1 outside of the radical. So when I look at these 7 x's, I'll be able to take 1 out, 2 out, 3 out. But this one right here has to stay under the radical. So my answer, square root of x to the seventh, is going to be x to the third outside the radical, and then underneath is